Hey, welcome to Millennial Spectrum. So, in this episode, we shot a little while back. It was a pretty good episode. We got on a discussion going from everything, just talking about our challenges as far as doing a podcast and social media, what we ran into there, and kind of what we discovered as far as topic relevance, trying to get clips that are worthwhile to an audience, and making the determination between doing what we want to do versus doing something that will be trending.
We went into the Menendez brothers case, which I've been pretty obsessed with for a month now. I think I'm kind of surprised that they don't have a hearing date yet, but I think it's getting pretty close, and it sounds like they're going to get released potentially pretty soon.
So then we went into stories about Emily's personal health and nutrition, her struggle with trying to get vitamins, how she made a trip to the IV place, which was kind of interesting, and her experience with that, and the old nurse's wives' tale, I guess you could call it, of the rolling veins. Some are difficult, but I've been told by some very well-known secret nurse insiders that that's just kind of a thing they say to get away with it.
And then from there, we kind of talked about generational differences, where just in the world that we're in today, there are a lot of people who are very self-centered in how they are. And I don't even know if it's themselves or if it's just the world that we're living in right now.
Yeah, you can't spell millennial without me. It's in there. Then we did a little touch on media influence and distrust, how that's grown, the growing skepticism, because those who want to can turn away from the TV and go on social media, and those who are even brave enough can do self-research, which they used to call it when I grew up reading and doing research, but now that's a hot topic.
And then Hollywood and all the scandals going on there with the Diddy case, all the celebrities that are getting involved with that. And then there's a lot of ones that are going unnamed right now still. So
yeah, it seems like the celebrity list keeps growing. Touch a little bit on political manipulation and public discussion, just talking about past incidences and some legal cases and perceived things with the upcoming election. We try not to dive into that too much because it's like so divisive, but we are the millennial spectrum, so it does make sense for us to give our perspective based on that.
And then we end on just talking about the Epstein list and how that still hasn't really been released yet. So it'll be interesting to see if the Diddy list actually gets released as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I think it'll be a big source of healing for everyone after a long while of uncomfortable truths that come out about what's going on. But we'll see. So that's the wrap up. Hope you enjoy. Leave us a like, comment. Join us here in the future on the Millennial Spectrum. Good afternoon. How you doing today?
So good. It's cold.
I don't buy that. That was like the weakest so good.
So good.
All right. No,
I'm tired. I did the hardest workout this morning, and then my legs, like when you exert it so much that they start to shake. That was me.
That's a good place to be. So you had a good workout.
Yes.
It was tough for you.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I can do hard things. That's
Yeah.
what I'm learning.
Yeah, you're capable of it. Just got to push yourself.
The body is amazing. It really is, actually. But it's all mind over matter.
If you don't mind, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I guess that's true too.
You're in love with the term "like" today.
Uh-oh.
I think you said it quite a bit.
I gotta stop.
So,
It's because I'm really trying to be conscious of staying on track.
on topic.
So
everything else becomes derailed.
I think so.
So the two things, let's see. Keeping you on topic, avoiding the likes, the ums, and the pause breaks, and then not talking over top of each other. Because when we're editing, it makes it pretty difficult. What the tendency typically is I put a little dramatic pause at the end of sentences, which I clearly have a tendency to do, and Emily sees that as an opportunity to dive right in to the next point of the conversation that she is thinking about.
Which usually is off topic, to be fair, to what I say.
Which is fine when we're talking, because it's like I feel as if our conversations don't feel derailed or don't feel so chaotic. But when we're watching them, we're trying to edit them into something watchable for people, they feel pretty chaotic. Whereas if we were just running it, it would be fine.
Yes. Or if we were just having a regular conversation in life, but
Right.
not a podcast.
Yeah. Well, no, we could get away with doing the podcast like this, I think.
Clips.
But making clips
So hard.
is tougher because you're trying to show breaks and transition, and I'm finishing a sentence and you're starting the beginning of yours, so it kind of misses out the point of it.
But there has been a lot of stuff going on, and I know I say this every time and I'm not prepared, but I am prepared today with at least 3 topics.
Okay.
So the first one is kind of a part 2, I guess, to our Menendez brothers conversation. I didn't even realize that many people were into it until recently, which I should have known because Netflix has 2 documentaries that came out in the course of a month.
Yeah.
So clearly.
So it's probably pretty popular.
Yeah.
Or people are talking about it.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're trying to get out. They've been in prison for 30 years now.
Okay.
So they're in their 50s. They're both married. They both got married in prison, which
What?
I did not know you could do that.
Wow. Well, probably so they could have conjugal visits or something?
Probably, but how do you date and how do you meet people in jail? Like in prison?
There's like a deal. Well, they're doing better than me because I'm not meeting anyone and I'm not in prison. So I actually am impressed, but I also am not famous yet.
That is true. They did get a lot of letters. Lyle Menendez actually got married. I think he got married twice while he was in prison. The first time it's because I believe he cheated on his wife with a person who was in prison. Which...
Wait, what?
Yeah.
He cheated? What was the guy's name?
That's what I don't know. I thought it was another woman, but do they ever commingle in prison? I don't think so. I'll have to dive a little bit deeper into that one because...
Yeah, how can you say that? That's a huge deal.
But, because...
To not have the details on that?
The article that I read didn't give a lot of details. It glossed over it. It was just like, was married, got divorced because he cheated on her while he was in prison, got remarried to somebody else.
Oh, well, maybe the person wasn't in prison but came in and visited him. I can see that.
Or like wrote letters or something.
Yeah. So
it's like emotional or physical. I don't know. I'll have to dive deeper into that. Lyle always seemed to me to be, he is... They portray him in the worst way in the documentary that they do, and both of the brothers have come out and said that they portrayed him in like this really angry, mean way, which I guess he's not actually like that. But why I'm bringing this up is, so their court case has been set for November 29th. So next month they're getting a second hearing because they're bringing in the evidence that they weren't able to bring in last time, because when they were tried the last time, they weren't able to bring in any evidence of abuse from the father.
Okay.
And that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it sounds like... I didn't know. I thought it was just physical abuse, and as far as a dad being a dad in that time period, right, correcting the kids or something like that. But obviously an elevated level of it. I didn't realize it was of the fornicating nature, right? And that involved. But I was young at the time, so people probably weren't having conversations with me about it. And just when they said abuse on the television, I was like, oh, they blasted their parents for getting belted or whatever over X, Y, and Z. I didn't know. I think at the time when I was a kid, I definitely didn't know the real scope of the allegations or the real, I guess, the real scope of the accusations from the brothers. So
they have their hearing because the judge wouldn't allow the full details of what the dad did when they were tried the first time. And so they believe that that's pretty extensive information that should have been shared. And so... Yeah, that would obviously have a huge impact on the case. Right. But it's taken 30 years for it to come out, which I think is why people on death row are on death row for as long as they are, because they have to try every single angle they possibly can. To get out. And the Menendez brothers almost got the death penalty, but the deciding juror had a heart attack and couldn't.
Dun dun dun.
She was like really adamant about giving Lyle Menendez at least the death penalty, and then she had the heart attack, brought in a new juror, and they believe that if that juror stayed, he would be on death row right now. Probably California is a little bit quicker, I think, with.
Which is ironic, because they're not really efficient with most anything else. But when it comes to one thing that they're heavily against, they're highly efficient with that.
I guess so. I mean,
They've got a lot of bodies in those prisons, though.
Right, I know.
If a certain DA of whatever heritage of the week is there, you are definitely going away and doing some hard labor in exchange for, to save the state some money.
Well, I swear I heard that it costs more to execute a prisoner costs more than to just keep them in prison, is what I heard. Because remember the one that just happened in Utah was...
That's what you said, and then we looked at the numbers, and I didn't think it worked out. Remember? We looked at the numbers, and it really didn't shake out. It's like to keep them alive for a month versus, that was valid, but not for long term. Didn't seem like.
This is going to derail us slightly, but I'm putting this in here so
Okay.
I think that I was actually going to get an IV like drip to get my B vitamins and stuff because I keep hearing how good it is. I keep chickening out though because IVs really scare me because I had a really bad experience with an IV.
What happened? Did the nurse miss the vein and blow it up or something?
So I was getting one wisdom tooth out because it was pushing against my teeth and it really hurt, so I needed to get it out. Mm-hmm. And they said that I had to go under even though I asked them if I really had to because I did not want to go under. Yeah. And they're just like, I probably should have fought it a little bit more, but I was like 17, so.
They're like, we want to bang on top of your body while you're passed out. Have you heard those stories of the dentists that were doing that? Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Wow. They probably just wanted, because my insurance said that they would cover it, and then when we got the bill, they didn't actually cover it. It was like a pretty hefty bill. But anyways, they are like, no, we need you to go out. So they tried.
The insurance didn't cover it because they said it wasn't necessary.
I think so. And I was like, I knew it because they were just pulling a tooth. It was already.
Pulling a tooth, though, is pretty severe.
Yeah, I know. Because I just think I could have been awake. But anyways, so the nurse tried 4 different times to get a vein and was just like, if I can't get it this time, I'm going to have to put it in your hand. And it hurt so bad every single time she did it.
And were you like, why are you threatening me with something that's clearly your fault? I'm doing such a terrible job at this that I'm going to punish you with frustration.
No. Then she finally got it in. I had huge bruises.
That rolling vein thing, that's bullshit too.
Is it really?
Yeah. Just means that they're not good at it. Because I know enough nurses now, and they say like that's a cop out. That it is an issue with some people because their veins are smaller and stuff. But if you're good at it, you have no problem. It's just people who aren't as good at it. So anyway, tell us your story about what happened. So they missed a bunch, put it in your hand.
And then they were just like, are you feeling tired? And I was like, not at all. And he's like, let me up the dose. So it took like 2 dosages of it just to like knock me out. And then I was out. And then I woke up and posted, like I think it was like my mom who was with me, like take a picture of me. And I posted it on Instagram while I was like under the influence of the thing. And then when I'm out of it, I was just like, I posted the most unfunny photo on my Instagram. So I deleted that like immediately. But so I don't have any like funny stories of being out, but I'm too scared to get another IV because they missed so many times. And I remember just how bad, like I can still feel how bad it hurt. So not only were they like missing it, but it was hurting every single time they were putting it in there. So I'm scared to go to the IV drip place because I don't want to experience that again.
Yeah, but they're doing it regularly, more so like someone who's doing it with a high frequency, a higher volume. because when you go to an IV drip place, the nurses who are working there are only performing shots and IV drips.
That's true. And they have really good reviews, so I should probably just give it a shot because I think that I haven't been sleeping that well because I am magnesium deficient, so I'm trying to just raise my levels back up.
So pretty much from what I've consistently read over my lifetime, being in the health and nutrition field and the personal training, is that pretty much all of us are magnesium deficient. Zinc, magnesium, and a couple other essential vitamins and minerals. So you can supplement or you can get it through food that are rich in it. Some people prefer to get it through the food because that's really more the way in which you would ingest it. Some people like to do the supplement because they can control it. It's just easier, right? Instead of being as selective with your diet or making the food perfect. That's the way I like to go. But then it's not as efficient, or maybe it's a little bit more efficient, but not the exact way in which it absorbs it. Because different vitamins and minerals need to be paired together in order to increase or allow absorption. So like different functions in your body enable the absorption of the substances you're consuming. So if you're just popping the pill on an empty stomach, one substance it may be beneficial, the next substance you probably just pee most of it out. I know in IV though, it puts it right in your veins in a bio-ready available form. So your body can start using it, but then you can make the argument that because it didn't go through the typical track and system, maybe there's parts of it that aren't broken down correctly, or your body isn't able to absorb the same way, or identify, because a lot of times in absorption or usage of things, it's like it gets primed from going through an earlier step, and then it releases hormones or it causes another reaction to then cause the channels to open up to which it gets absorbed. So maybe you take an IV of something in particular and it gets dumped in there, but the receptors aren't activated because this other receptor stimulus hormone gets produced when you consume this good. So it's all different depending on what we're talking about specifically. Long story short, there's no perfect way that I've seen. Everyone's almost arguing, depending on what position or bias they bring to the conversation about nutrition, they're arguing one way or the other. Like that supplementation is the right way, or that intravenous is the right way, or that consuming the food is the right way, or whatever.
My idea was just to get them back up to where it probably should be and then supplement it in. But I also think it's going to give me superpowers, and I know it's not. I'm probably not going to feel any different.
No, you do feel different.
Do you?
Sure. Yeah, you feel better. You notice that you just feel fresher for a longer period of time, and you just feel better.
I just have been feeling a little bit like bogged down lately. I think it's just because I haven't been sleeping that great.
That'll do that. You need to get that sleep. You need to hit that correct circadian rhythm, get the right sleep cycle. You need to stay off of blue light before bed. Get the red light on you. Right? Red light, and then get that sunlight first thing in the morning. Stimulate your eyes, your ocular nerves.
I know, because the first thing I do is just pull up my phone.
Yeah, that's what most people do. And that's why their circadian rhythm's all messed up.
So I've been trying to figure that out, so I feel a little bit more energized throughout the day.
I could hear it in your voice. Oh, you're saying so that you feel more energized. Okay.
No, I know. So maybe I'll do it and then I'll report back.
That sounds good.
See, I have like a lot of stuff that we're trying that we're going to report back on how it does.
Yeah, the chewing gum too, the jaw liner we've got today. Well, we should look into I've seen a lot where it's saying try to get X amount of minutes per day for X amount of days, where it's almost like a prescription of 4 to 5 times per day for 5 minutes or something like that.
It is funny how I was thinking about it. There are generalizations in life, but I think it's because there's a lot of truth to it. Where I know some people get offended. Like I was listening to this one podcast for school, and it was this professor, and he was upset that his female professors would be called more like empathetic, and he would say, well, I'm an empathetic person and blah, blah, blah. And just because I'm a guy, you shouldn't assume that. And it's true, but I don't think that that's what they meant. I think that they just meant girls feel, I think, a little bit more like, I don't know how to say it. Like, I think girls maybe lead more with feelings and guys lead more with logic.
I don't know. A lot of that's changed over time, but I would generally agree with that, especially previously. But now I mean, the whole movements and stuff have changed. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
I
I
mean,
feel like
that's
I went through a generational change where the women and the people that I'm around have totally changed their standard of practice of living and how they conduct their behavior, both men and women, dramatically.
Mhm.
And I think my generation is a generation that's probably one of the most troubled and will be a bunch of 80-year-old single people who are dysfunctional. And I
Be-
hope my daughter's generation is people who start putting together values and building families and stuff again.
got it.
Because,
Okay.
like, not only the divorce rate, but just their interests, it's all, we're some of the most self absorbed, self interested individuals. And I think we got a lot of it from our parents. And then we had to struggle so much to, like, have anything where it's like, again, that boomer generation, then to our generation, the boomer generation set themselves up and they were kind of like the last American dream generation. They all got their homes, they got their summer vacations, they got their power boats, they got all their stuff. Then the next generation of us got saddled with some debt, saddled with some increased costs, and now at the point where you'd normally be setting up your retirement and really dumping into that, we're
Mhm.
still bailing ourselves out and trying to put things together, a lot of us. And I would also say that a lot of us are very self-centered and self-fulfilling seeking. At least the people I'd been in relationships with, and I'm got to include myself in there because here I am. But just watching where they're at now, and it's still the same type stuff and behavior. It's very common where it's just like going to rock concerts, going on trips every weekend. Like there's time when I'm going to be a parent, and then there's me time where I go on vacation by myself and with my friends. And it's just, I had never seen examples of that when I was growing up.
Mhm.
And now I see a lot of that where it's single people or people who have children who are like consider themselves a parent half the time. And then the other half of the time they get to be the 40-year-old who's out going to rock concerts and drinking. It's like, but, and there used to be people who would do that, but they were kind of people who were doing that until they were dying of liver disease or whatever, or had, point being is they lived that lifestyle because that's who they were, where there's a lot of people who are living that lifestyle kind of part-time. And I'm
Mhm.
just curious to see what that's going to look like for everyone when they get older.
It's more common now. Like how you were saying, there were a few people, they were kind of more so outliers, where I feel like it's kind of more common
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I think a lot
And
of
it's a
it,
point of pride and bragging,
yeah.
like that they're living the life. And you could see it in their life, in their aggravation and their frustration. It's like you're living chaotic. You're living like you're not living that happy unless you're doing those events. You have to be doing those events to say that you're happy. But there's so much stuff going on in those events, you're kind of just getting lost in the noise of being there. So are you really,
Hmm.
is it really that you're achieving this euphoria of happiness, or is it just that you're able to zone out and be surrounded by a lot of energy and then say, "Oh no, I'm doing, look at what I'm doing." I,
No, I would agree with that. Especially because I guess I have to be kind of careful how I phrase this, but because it is a lot more common, we are kind of surrounded by a lot of people who live that lifestyle. And what I've noticed about them, and I guess like, include like myself as well, but things that really shouldn't matter, like, or is life ending all of
yeah.
a sudden? Where I'm just like, why are you so concerned about this? Like, why is this occupying so much of your time? And I think it's because it's really kind of all they have.
Yeah, I was gonna say they have nothing else. Have nothing else. It's like when you don't have enough business or priority or purpose, you find purpose in things that don't even warrant to have enough energy and purpose for. And so then all this effort is going into things that aren't making a big difference at the end of the day or aren't really fulfilling, even if you're wildly successful with your thoughts of it. And you can't see the fruit of your efforts because it just stops with it. Whereas when you have other things in life that can continue on, or you have kids or whatever,
Mhm.
you're watching that evolution process and that change of what you helped build and then, or you were part of, I guess.
Yeah.
And then you just watch it grow and keep trying to interact with it, but you know that it's growing on its own and it's going to continue. It's like planting a tree versus having built a Lego kit of a tree.
Right. I mean, that is actually a really good analogy because that's how I feel is I just keep seeing these people where it's just if things don't go exactly their way, it's just like the end of the world. And I just wonder why it's gotten so much higher like that. I think if you're stuck in kind of that mentality, that's your life. Maybe that's why people don't like self-help books so much because it does kind of call you out.
Did you finish up The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fahuka?
Not yet, but maybe today.
Okay, you're getting close then.
Are you done?
No, this has been tough. You've actually derailed me from my reading habits because I'm trying not to read. So I'm reading so little that I kind of go through withdrawal. And then I'm trying to find ways to fill my time. So now I'm watching more television and messing with my phone and things like that.
I think what we need to do is have a reading schedule that I will be able to, that I'll stick to.
I think what we have to do is have multiple books. And then we can review the book as we go through. So the last thing, I think I was on 136 or 140 something, somewhere around there. As I'm reading through the book, I obviously see a lot of myself in there, and he is an identifying person. He does a good job of being relatable and kind of getting into the psyche and reveal who he is.
Mm-hmm.
And what was the one thing? There was like a quote in there where he was talking about as far as concentration of the material, just like as if you're concentrating on his book or the bad little thoughts that are getting into your head instead. And so many other things that he says, it's very human and it's very open. It's almost open in a way that's naked. And he's like exposing both the reader and himself.
Okay.
And I mean that from a way of being like naked as far as being honest and not trying to cloud in spots, being very honest and transparent, I guess is a better word to say it. But it does make me think more naked because it's more embarrassing. It's more like uncomfortable, right? And that's the kind of stuff that he sneaks in there. Are the things that are embarrassing or uncomfortable or that are taboo typically to talk about. And then he even addresses that later on when he talks about the wife wanting to be more adventurous in the bedroom or something like that. Just mean not his, but just in general, and afraid to talk about that because of the taboo that comes along with it. So
Sure.
he does a lot of that to the reader. At least me, as the reader, he's done that to me maybe like 4 or 5 times where I'm reading through and he says something and it's like he's exposing his thoughts, but it's also very relatable to my own experience, either at the time or something that's, yeah. And I was like, oh, I get that. But you've got to be very confident in what you're saying so that it comes across. Otherwise, it lands flat or it doesn't land at all. But it landed with me on a lot of his stuff. So
That's good. I am liking it so far. I think it has made me face some things too, where I'm like, yeah, when I do focus on a billion different things at once, then nothing actually gets done. It's like I need to focus on one and just run with that, and then actually just get one thing done instead of getting 5 things halfway done. That's a weakness that I have.
yeah, I think when I talk with you, you typically talk about all the things that you have to do or are working on, but then you don't have a lot of completed projects, right? So, and that's why I try to draw it back to just complete one. Just do the posts on Instagram. Right?
Yeah.
Instead of saying, and you don't even have to do anything. You literally just have to put the video in and let it go. Right? And because it's already done, you've done the work earlier where you posted those on other channels. It's just reusing that information. So,
Because when you do that method, you get pretty much everything done at once, but I don't think that that's the best way because all those weeks leading up to it have been neglected until like that one moment where everything's done. So this book has made me face a few of those things where I've realized there is a lot that I still need to work on.
well, I think we're all doing that, right?
Hopefully, I mean,
The idea is we're all learning more about ourselves and all trying to, you're always changing, whether you're improving or becoming less functional, but you're always changing, you're always evolving in your experience with yourself and with other people. So that's the one thing, that's the one constant that I've always experienced. The one constant is change.
I don't like change, but it's so necessary. I've realized. I know you've said this a lot where we're on a planet that's like a part of a bigger galaxy and stuff. It's like change is so inevitable. Which is how like the earth rotates and stuff. We're quite literally changing all of the time.
Yeah, we're not in the same location ever, right? People just think we rotate around the sun, but we're not. We're flying through the galaxy as well. We're moving through that. Probably more like a top spinning on a table than we are. Yeah, but if you've actually seen it, it's kind of going all over the place, right? Traveling along as opposed to just sitting in one location.
I guess kind of switching to the other topic that I had, I have realized last night, but I think forever, just how much, and you can say this about both sides of the spectrum for, this is a political example, but for any spectrum, just how much media control they actually have. But just like the words of it really kind of freaked me out, how it was just like weird, joy, testy, and I didn't even realize that it was in my brain.
Yeah.
Until
And you said it to me?
Yeah. You're like, yeah, they're pushing that one.
And I thought you were saying it mockingly to me. I thought you were aware of that. It's just interesting how different our timelines are. So she's talking about in her social media feed and from what she was reading, the vice president's interview that, in my opinion, was a disaster for her on her timeline was talking about how she triumphed over it but came across as testy. On my timeline, it was talking about how disastrous it was for her, highlighting the inability to handle some questions and things. And then also talking about how the word, basically the word for the media was out, and that was testy, to use the word testy. And it was in the headlines of all these articles and describing her as testy. So when she said to me, she said, oh, she was pretty testy or a little bit testy and stuff, things of that nature. I then sent her the information I have where it's like right after the interview occurred and when the information was released that the media was pushing the word testy. And then a day later, she tells me that she was testy. Right? Is that pretty accurate?
It's just crazy to me because I feel like I can kind of see things now, what the agenda is, but I still get caught into it though.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to, honestly, I just don't trust anything anymore.
That's a good way to be.
Online. Because you just don't know, like everybody has an agenda. We've seen that with our stuff too, where certain videos do not get pushed out.
Right.
And we'll post another one and all of a sudden it gets pushed out.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of is the subject matter that we're talking about.
Control the message.
I thought though that X was going to be the free speech thing, and now it seems like it's blocking things.
Yeah. It's gotten a little bit worse for sure.
And I just don't know why.
Because of the election. And because controlling the message is huge for them. Those who want to control the message. Those who need to control the message. I think if everyone knew the truth, If everyone knew the truth of the world and how things operate, there'd be a lot of people who don't want to go to work on Monday.
Really?
Yeah, that's my opinion.
Just because what's the point?
A lot of people who wouldn't want to pay taxes, that's for sure, who'd be fighting that.
Well, that's why they're trying to keep us divided.
Yeah.
I just didn't realize how susceptible all of us are, I think, to messaging. And they clearly know, whoever they are, they clearly know that. And so they know if I use this word, then it's going to seem a lot more casual or a lot more softer than what actually happened. I have seen some clips of it though.
Some clips of what?
The Fox News.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And
Brett Baer. And Baer was very difficult with
he
the
was.
Orange Man as well.
Oh, he interviewed him too?
Yeah, over time. Yeah, over the years, for sure.
I don't even know if he. I mean, he was being like firm, but I think he was just trying to get her to answer a question.
And he was not being difficult. Like he was combative and kind of nasty to the Orange Man. And then with
Really?
her, he was just being direct and making her
Yeah.
answer the question instead of walk away from the question, which she's notorious for doing.
That's how I felt too, where I'm just like, I don't even know if he's being that like rude or if he's just being like, why aren't you answering this question type thing. It does seem like he was pretty prepared though, with a lot of Trump quotes where he's like, you said that, he said this, and then it would like show something that he actually said.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge game that the media has been playing for, what has it been now? Nearly 9 years, right?
Oh, wow.
Since end of 2000. I forget when the escalator scene actually occurred. Wasn't it the end of 2015? Somewhere around there. But that's been the game, is that it's laughable how much they misrepresent what the man actually said, because he says plenty of things that you can point at or show that are inconsistent, for sure, especially a guy who talks so much all over the place and about so many topics.
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
does.
that's just natural. If you have that, if you're given unlimited media, if the media has unlimited access to you and asks you about everything under the sun for 8, 9 years while they're trying to crucify you, the amount of stuff that they should have to hold against this guy should be insurmountable. But they don't. And the stuff that's most damaging is often made up or misrepresented, like the bloodbath scenario.
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right? And he's directly talking about car manufacturing and how if China moves its manufacturing into Mexico and starts sending the goods across the border, that it's going to decimate the U.S. auto industry it'll be a bloodbath. And that's what he was referring to. And then he spoke about the election. The election he was referring to was his election, if it were not to occur, that China would be moving into Mexico, producing cars at a high rate, and then sending them into the United States with no tariff. And then people talk about tariffs like he doesn't understand tariffs. No, you need to look how tariffs actually work. There's a way in which they do work, and there's a reason why they did work. Yes, if you're selling someone goods from China, they are going to have a tariff on there, and there's going to be a percentage. But because of that, they are then going to come to the negotiating table because it's going to drive down their sales.
Mm.
So then they're going to have to levy or reduce tariffs against you, or they're going to pay it, and the companies are going to pay it, and the consumers are going to pay it. But then that gives an opportunity. Let's say, so for instance, China's labor market is better than the United States, so they can produce a good for less money. But if you tariff it, now it makes it less desirable, and it makes it more likely that a U.S. company can produce that and still provide livable wages.
Mm.
And so that's what it does. Then that country, like a China, would have to come to the table and start having discussion about their tariffs. And a lot of the countries that we trade with, our trade partners, tariffed the heck out of us. Like, it was very well explained basically how the United States used its wealth of economy to rebuild both Japan and Germany post World War II. And we did it by allowing them to tariff us to ungodly levels, but pay no tariff for their goods. Their goods come into the U.S. for free, essentially. So, which drove out, which obviously helped rebuild their economy financially, and then ended up driving out a lot of our labor. And our labor, those jobs and those companies then could produce goods in another area and sell it back to the United States and make more profit. So they did that. I mean, that's just 101. So then inversely, if you reduce or if you impose these tariffs, then these companies could make more profit and function being in the United States, or be able to be competitive with other countries that are importing goods right now.
If you just listen to the media and don't do your own research, a lot of it we're not going to really understand. How people were saying, like, oh, well, you don't understand tariffs, is like, well, maybe we actually don't understand tariffs, how it's being explained to us.
Yeah.
I mean, most recently, the hashtag, like, Trump is unwell, they've been trying to do that because all they showed was him standing with the music.
It's just amazing the stuff that's in your timeline. But go ahead.
Because all they would show is him standing with music, and it looked like he didn't know where he was or where he was going. But whenever I see clips like that, for whoever, like, whatever side, you always have to be like, this is most likely taken out of context, and what is the bigger picture?
Well, there's a huge difference between one guy walking along the stage, unable to find the stairs and the exit, or calling for someone to come up and demanding that they tell him who's next and the person standing right next to him, right? Versus a guy standing on stage, swaying, mouthing the lyrics to songs. That's just someone hanging out. And that's exactly what it turned out the case to be. Was there was a medical emergency, they stopped the rally, they just played music, and he just stood there for 30 minutes hanging out with everyone, singing songs like God Bless America or whatever they put on. And then the media took it as an opportunity to make it like the guy had a complete meltdown. It's like, that doesn't even make sense. You don't think that they would usher him off the stage? They just leave him on the stage for 39 minutes, standing there singing to classic doc rock songs or whatever? What, are you kidding me? Even the Biden administration would pull Biden before they let it go nearly an hour or whatever.
Yeah, so I think that just kind of blew my mind. And I guess, like, one kind of final thing to end on is just kind of how crazy I think Hollywood is getting. I think it's going to gear up a lot more. I can't tell if it's going to be released before or after the election, though. But I don't know if you saw it. Like, Ashton Kutcher is mixed up in a lot of stuff right now.
Okay.
And he, like, released a statement the other day that he wants to move to the UK because he feels like Hollywood's too corrupt for him to live there because of all the Diddy stuff. And I was like, aren't you a part of this, though?
Yeah, wasn't that your boy?
So clearly everybody's freaking out, and there is a lot more to all of this.
That's why I think a lot of those people who say, I'm going to move to X, Y, and Z because of the Orange Man, every time I see one of those posts, I say to myself, I wonder if they're caught up in something.
But is running away to a different country going to stop anything? They can get you there.
But not an extraditing country, potentially. For sure.
So it's just interesting. I think a lot more is going to come out. I just don't know when. I hope so. With all the Epstein stuff, you just never know.
Yeah, how well that was just covered up and hushed up, and then nothing happened from it. It'll get more chaotic, especially after the election stuff. One way or the other, there'll be questions. Because the overall, I mean, unless you're lying, the overwhelming sentiment is towards one individual. And then if it ends up being something shockingly different, which feels like... here's my impression, is that one feels as if this is overwhelmingly going to go one direction where it's going to be significant. But the concern is that the level of interference may be so high to where the other individual would win. And if that happens, I think you're going to have a lot more people that are going to do more than just raise questions or show instances like you saw in Georgia and in Arizona and in other areas. People don't realize that there's a lot of cases. They talk about these cases that, like, for instance, the old administration lost about the election. Um, they never went to trial. They never presented evidence. They said that they didn't have standing. And so people will say, well, it's so bad it doesn't even have standing. No, what that means is that you don't have standing within that court. So it would be like they're making the argument that there very well may have been a murder, but you're in traffic court.
Okay.
So this case is thrown out because you need to be in murder court. No, they don't have, they are saying that the court system, because of the individuals involved and what it's about, meaning the national election, presidential candidate, that this is not the court to hold this case.
Got it.
Does that make sense? And so they're constantly going to that because there really isn't a court to go to be making that case because it's such an unprecedented ordeal. Who even handles it? No one's actually decided. No, the Epstein list hasn't been released yet. Well, it's been leaked online multiple times and it doesn't seem to be changing.
Do you think it's accurate then?
I wonder if it's not. The flight logs were released and we know who was on the flights, and there are names on the flights that are on that list, and the list came out before the flight log. So they clearly have all that information. It's just not going mainstream, right? Or being confirmed. So why is that not happening? There's got to be someone with a lot of money preventing that from happening. I guess the shorter answer is money is not allowing that to happen.
Yeah. Right.
Because it was believed, I mean, it depends on who you believe. Is it a certain country in the Middle East that's always come up? Was that individual, Mr. Epstein, a part of that country and their version of a 4-letter or 3-letter agency here? And was it a giant honeypot operation for U.S. politicians and others? Maybe. And is that why? Because the whole point of having that information is to control those individuals. And so if that gets released, does that dissolve that control? Yeah, I mean, once it's pulled, once it's ruined, it's done.